like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining Unilytics webinar on the upgrading options for Webtrends 8. We're presenting this webinar today because Webtrends will be discontinuing support for versions 8, 8.1, and 8.5 on July 31st of this year. So it's important for you to plan your upgrade now to ensure that you have a supported version in place well before the sunset date. Presenting today is Unilytics President, Peter Horning. Peter will describe the upgrade options that are available and highlight the benefits of each so that you will make the best decision for your organization. Also presenting will be John Strakowski, our Senior Web Analytics Consultant. John will elaborate on some of the more technical aspects of the Webtrends upgrade options. We encourage you to ask questions during the webinar by using the Q&A tab, which will appear at the top of the screen. Please type in your questions, and we will address all questions at the conclusion of the webinar. So thank you and enjoy the webinar. Peter?
Thank you, Karen. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with who we are, let me just go through a brief introduction. We've been a web analytics supplier since 2001, just had our 10th anniversary, and we have over 800 customers across North America. We've completed over 450 consulting engagements. And we've developed some technology along the way as well to improve some of the reporting and analytics where we've seen there are deficiencies. Today's webinar is about Webtrends, but we're also certified and we do a tremendous amount of work with Adobe Site Catalyst and Google Analytics. So as Karen mentioned, we're here today because Webtrends is going to be discontinuing support for versions 8, 8.1, and 8.5 in the summer of 2012. And looking at the audience that we have today, we have a whole mix of people, including those still on version 7, but of course version 8, 8.1, and 8.5, and also 8.7. I haven't seen anybody here that's using 9.2, but they're certainly welcome to attend as well. Now, when we're producing web analytics reports with Webtrends, there are two options, and this is important to talk about a little bit today. And that's, you can either do it with just traditional IIS log files or Apache logs, or using the Smart Source Data Collector. And the Smart Source Data Collector, for those of you who have not upgraded to that yet, this is a very, very good opportunity to do that as you move to 9.2. You're doing infrastructure changes anyway, so this is a great time to upgrade your systems. And certainly functionally, Smart Source Data Collector delivers much, much more value than processing traditional IIS log files. Let's spend just a moment on the process itself. And so if we are a visitor to a website and we navigate pages on that site, when we request that information from the server, that visit information will be written back to the web server log file. One of the problems in that topology is that it does not set a cookie. And a cookie, of course, is very important from a web analytics point of view in that it delivers a lot of it allows us to track that this visitor has been here before. So it gives us a lot of information on visitor traffic and reporting on paths and so on. In addition to that, of course, if we look at a JavaScripted solution, there's tremendous value that it delivers as far as functionality. And in this case, the information about the visit is recorded instead on a remote collection server in a cloud-based environment. You can turn that on if you want. The solution that Webtrends offers that's very attractive as well is Webtrends Smart Source Data Collector, or the SDC. In this case, instead of having the data collected at a remote location, it's in fact collected instead at a local server. Again, in both cases, we set a cookie, so the information that's collected is very, very powerful from a web analytics point of view. So some of the advantages of the SDC is much, much better accuracy. Otherwise, we're relying on IP addresses, and in this case, this delivers much more functionality by having a cookie set to track visitors, and so things like path analysis, funnel analysis, or scenario analysis, as we call it in Webtrends, is available. It also doesn't collect robot and spider traffic, which is just really a lot of noise that has to be filtered out anyway. The log management is much easier too because the log files are about 90% smaller and they're all stored in one location as opposed to multiple server log files. There's much more granularity and things that we can track. So we can track all kinds of user events, and we can track things like video progression or form fill, etc. And it doesn't get affected by cache or proxy servers. You also have the ability to set meta tag information, so you can track a lot of information that you can't do in a traditional IIS log file. So you can track revenue, you can correlate your campaigns, and you can track things across domains. You can also start doing sophisticated multivariate testing and A/B testing. And Webtrends 9.2 has a really nice new user interface called Insight, and that's optimized by using the SDC. So the upgrade options that we have are 4. You can either do a multi-level migration from 8 to 9.2, and John will go over in more detail how that works. You can simply say that you're not going to do the migration because it does take time and it's effort. You can instead simply do a clean install of 9.2. A third option is to move away from on-premise software and instead move to an on-demand service, which we offer as well. And in that case, you're using version 10, so it's an even more advanced version than 9.2. And the fourth option is that we can move the software installation that you currently have to one of our own server systems. So you can move your software to Unilytics servers, which are fully co-located and fully secure, and where we would run 9.2 for you. So you can still take advantage of some of the advantages of a software installation, but still gaining the value of having cloud computing. If we look at the hardware configuration, it too will change as you move to 9.2. You will require an analysis server as you have now, but you're also going to need an Insight server to serve up the new UI. And of course, if you're running Smart Source Data Collector, which we would highly recommend, you'll need a collection server. And in fact, you really need 2 for redundancy in case there's trouble with one of those servers for some reason. And if you're a larger client, you're going to need multiple servers. So there is certainly a hardware consideration when moving to 9.2. This is also 64-bit technology. So the analysis server, and these are minimum configurations, should have 6 gig of RAM, but it does support VM. The Insight server, 8 gigs of RAM, again, supports VM. And then the SDC servers aren't terribly robust. You probably have some lying around. They only need 1 gig of RAM each. So with that, let me turn it over to John.
So let's talk about the first option. Let's talk about software upgrade. So ideally, you will want to have all your data migrated from the current version of Webtrends that you're using to the new 9.2. And we're going to take it's not the lowest version of Webtrends that we can start from, but we're going to pick a scenario which is a client being on Webtrends 8.0D. Clients being on older version than 8.0D would invariably have to upgrade to 8.0D anyway. So it's a pretty interesting version to start with as a figure case. So the first thing we'll do is we'll review the prerequisites. It seems like nothing, but there's a lot of pieces to the upgrade process. So we want to make sure before we even get on site that the hardware specs are present, that the necessary software are available, that the backup storage is available on a moment's notice, etc. So I want to make sure that all the pieces are present. And with that, the first thing we'll do, and we'll usually have our clients do this potentially ahead of time, is a full backup of the current installation, so that we're always able to roll back to the original the exact original state that we were if something goes bad, which it does happen, and it's not really nobody's fault. It's not a bad process. It's just that it's a very complex process. A lot of things could have happened during your time with Webtrends to corrupt the database without you knowing it, etc. So once we have all this in place, we'll upgrade 80D to Webtrends 85A. We'll go from Webtrends 85A to Webtrends 87D on a 32-bit platform, which we are already. It's important to mention it because 87D is the version of Webtrends that gets installed on the 32-bit and on the 64-bit platform. We'll take the content of the upgraded 87D Webtrends and migrate it as well as the database. So to the new installation, Webtrends 87D on a 64-bit. That's a fresh install here. Once that's done, then we can actually do the migration physically. And when everything is up and running, which means that we have our original content, all our files, profiles, reports, etc., migrated to 64-bit environment, we now upgrade it to 9.2. And then we can install Insight with all the Insight components. These are listed briefly in the next slide. So that pretty much does it for our software upgrade. Yes, Peter? Good. Oh, sorry. Okay. Something to say. So the fresh install of 9.2 is also an option if you don't necessarily need to carry over all your original profiles and reports, want to create them or recreate them. This option is probably for you. We'll still start by reviewing all the prerequisites, make sure the hardware is up to specs, all the software present, service accounts have been created and are ready to be used, etc. We'll of course advise you on that as the engagement gets planned out. This is a really key point here. With a fresh installation, before we even touch the software, the first thing we're going to do is evaluate your business goals and objective. And this is where Unilytics really stands out of the crowd. We have a methodology that we call RETAIN, which stands for Reverse Engineering, Training, and Implementation, where we actually start a fresh engagement, such as a fresh 9.2 installation, with an evaluation of your needs, of your business goals and objectives, and with some training, so that we're better able to verbalize and conceptualize our needs. Once that's been done and we have a valuable survey that's been completed, thank you, and we know a little bit more about where we're heading and where you want to go, we can start with the actual installation of Webtrends. Once Webtrends 9.2 is installed, we can install Insight. Insight also comes, and this is one of the reasons it requires so much memory, with alerts, which allow you to get an alert when certain measures or certain metrics haven't reached or have reached a certain point during the day. There is also an option for real-time data, as well as a new data extraction API, which is a completely novel and fantastic way of getting data out of Webtrends into third-party applications with absolutely no programming knowledge necessary. Once all the pieces of the software are in place, then we can actually deploy Webtrends as per the survey that we've established and your business goals and objectives. A much lighter version of Webtrends, and by lighter I mean it's much less involved in terms of the administration and hardware and software requirements, is the on-demand version of Webtrends. So service as a software, as it's called. We'll still start by evaluating your business goals and objectives. We'll set you up with an account for Webtrends 10, which is the latest version currently available on demand. We will work with you to deploy the JavaScript on your web properties so that you can start capturing data. And we will configure, create profiles and spaces to display the data and give you access to your stats. Unilytics Managed Services, as Peter was explaining, gives you the opportunity to have access to all the features of a Webtrends on-premise without having to manage the hardware or the software. The first step in that process is going to be to back up all your current Webtrends implementation, so your database, your storage directory, and your log files. We will physically move all that to our servers, to our locations. We will establish a transition plan to go from the point where you're capturing the data to us capturing the data, and we'll make that seamless, obviously. We won't want to have any loss of data. That's really critical. We will integrate your data with in our environment, in our Webtrends environment, and if that's required, we will, as needed, upgrade your current version of Webtrends to the latest version of Webtrends.
Thanks, John. So look at that. I get the busy chart to explain. But I'm not going to go through it in detail, but suffice it to say, this is a fully secure, fully co-located, and fully redundant environment in which, if you look at the top right-hand corner there, we have a load balancer and 2 SDC servers. So it's terribly important to have redundancy for those collection servers, because if one were to go down, you would not get any data collected unless you had another one to pick up. Similarly, so we have location centers for this is in Toronto, Vancouver, and also in Dallas. And so on this chart, we're showing that the first set of location may be in Vancouver. On the bottom left part of this chart, there's also another set of co-located SDC servers. So in fact, in this environment, we run 4 SDC servers to ensure there's absolutely never a chance that collection cannot occur. So even if one data center went down, the other data center would pick up. So just in summary then, if we look at the comparison of the 4 different options that we have of either upgrading your system systematically from version 8 through 8.5, 8.7 to 9.2 versus doing a new installation of 9.2 versus going to an on-demand environment of version 10 or Unilytics Managed Services, if we look first at the reports and profiles, there are good and bad with all of these options. So first of all, on the reports and profiles, we then would be faced with migrating those reports and profiles to the new version of 9.2 in an upgrade. And that takes effort, but on the other hand, it's a good thing because now you have those profiles and reports in the new version. One of the things that everyone should be considering is that new version 9.2 offers a tremendous amount of new features and capabilities, and in particular, if you're going to a JavaScripted environment, you will likely want to rebuild your profiles anyway. And so there's a reason to consider doing a new installation if you're going brand clean anyway. So a new installation would, of course, require you to build new profiles as it would in an on-demand environment. For Unilytics Managed Services, we can migrate those reports and profiles for you. So, of course, in all cases except for on-demand, we're still running software. And the version in on-demand is version 10, whereas in the others it's version 9.2. The hardware responsibility, and this is certainly one thing that clients today are concerned about as they move to 9.2, it requires all new hardware, all 64-bit, and that's one of the challenges that we've heard from clients. So if you're upgrading or if you're doing a new installation of software, you're obviously still responsible for that hardware. In the on-demand environment, Webtrends does all the processing for you, so the hardware is in their domain. And in the Unilytics environment for UMS, we, of course, purchase all new hardware for all clients, and each client, in fact, runs their own set of hardware in our environment. Data location is a concern for some clients as well, both for clients in Canada and in the US. Some clients are not interested in having their data stored on US servers, perhaps, in a hosted environment. if you're upgrading or doing a new installation of software, or in the Unilytics Managed Services option, that data can be stored either in Canada or in the US, whatever your choice. You also have full data control in environments where you're running software. The reality is that for hosted services, there are often surcharges if you want to reprocess log files, if you want to reprocess profiles, and so on. And going back historically is more difficult, and getting access to all the data can come with a cost. So if you're running software, that is not the case. You have full control of that data. And in the case of Unilytics Managed Services, all your reports and all your installation and configuration is all being managed by Webtrends experts. And you're free to contact us for assistance for that. So that finishes the main section of this webinar. We would now encourage you to ask questions if you have some, and we'd love to respond to those. And while we wait for some of those, we're just going to have a quick message from our sponsor, and that's us. So we know there's always some delay in getting questions and answers. Instead of having all that dead space, we thought we'd share with you some of the other things that Unilytics does. So some of the products that we've developed over the last 24 months include Montage. We have some very, very happy customers probably on the line today that are using Montage, and it's a tool to extract data from Webtrends and also from Google Analytics and other sources to extract data and populate Excel dashboards automatically. So it establishes a connector and then queries to your data to deliver information on an automated basis. We've also created Mergence, which is a tool to create better reports for those who are building websites using SharePoint. Native analytics tools really struggle with much of the SharePoint content and concepts. So we've created this product for customers that are using SharePoint. We also have created a VHE Distiller that is a tool that extends the capabilities of VHE in Webtrends to do one-to-one marketing. It transforms that data into a database. And some of the services we offer, many of you have already participated in the training methodology that we use called Retain. We do a tremendous amount of work with clients looking at KPIs and establishing those KPIs using our proprietary methodology called the KPI Carta. And then we do web analytics governance and assist in all sorts of things to do with web analytics. So as I've been speaking, we've had several questions that have come in. And let me take a look at what some of these are.
Let me just start out by answering one of the questions about the release of version 10 as a software. There's currently no announcement by Webtrends for when that is going to be available. Another question is...
Correct. And so just to be clear on that, usually the release of software is about 10 months, or 12 months, pardon me, after the release of the system in an on-demand environment. So 10 has been available for a little bit less than a year, so we're certainly hoping that that announcement will come soon, but it has not come yet. The next question we have is if you can get a copy of the slides. Yes, you can definitely get a copy of the slides, and we're going to be making all of the presentation webinar available online as well, and that should be up within a day or so. So the next question is, I was surprised. Can we just expand? Sorry, the next question was, I was surprised to see that the Insight server is required. John, do you want to take that question?
Right.
He gets all the tough ones.
Since I was ready 5 minutes ago. So the Insight server is not actually required at all to run version 9.2. What is really giving a lot of value to Insight is having a JavaScripted version method to collect data, meaning that if you're still using regular web server logs, you won't get as much value out of Insight. If you don't want to deploy Insight at all, you can still use 9.2 with the standard interface. So Insight is mainly a few options, and mainly a new interface for end users, entirely dedicated to end users. So it's not a prerequisite, but it's a lot of the new features of Night 2 are delivered through Insight.
I want to take this one too.
Sure.
So we have another question of that a person has version 8.5D now. Does that mean for upgrading you have to add an additional Insight server? What will be the impact?
It's either 8.0D or 8.5A, or the 8.5D doesn't actually exist, but it's probably a typo, and it's not critical to answer this question. Just want to point that out. So the Insight server, again, is an option once you arrive to the 9.2 version, meaning that to get from 8.5A or 8.7D or whatever version you're on, you're going to have one or more steps to upgrade to 9.2. Once you get to 9.2, you have the option of also deploying Insight on a second server if you so choose.
So the next question we have is, if we do a new installation of 9.2, can existing SDC logs be parsed and accessed by the new install?
That would be pretty critical, I would think. That goes without saying, in the sense that your SDC logs will absolutely be parsed and accessed by the new installation.
Then we have a question here about, could you tell us more about the Webtrends for SharePoint being offered by Webtrends, and what version do we need to run for this? The Webtrends does also offer a tool for SharePoint. It only works in a hosted environment. So if you're running software, that would not be something that you would logically look at. And the Webtrends, the Unilytics offering, is both for software and for hosted.
And it's called versions.
Right. Then there's a question here, is the upgrade procedure from 8.5 to 9.2 well documented?
Actually, it is. Actually, it is. We certainly provide you with all the steps that we've gone through while we do the upgrade.
But I think the question is if it is a well documented from Webtrends.
It's sort of bullet points. It's going to be a little difficult based solely on the Webtrends documentation. This is, in my opinion, to get you out of trouble if anything happens, and it does. It does. I mean, I'm not going to get into details, but the point is that as well as the documentation is, you do need the experience to get it done in a timely manner and make sure that at the end of the day you have a working, functional, with no bug-free 9.2 installation upgraded. Right. Not entirely sure.
Let's go to this one. The question is, we want to start a 9.2 fresh with new hardware and a base install, but want to move just a portion of our 8.5 profiles as they have not been used for a very long time. Is there an easy way to move just what we want?
You can't actually move, you can't upgrade partially. It's an all or nothing process. You either upgrade your entire Webtrends installation or you don't. There's actually no way to do it partially. I'm also reading a question here about upgrading our site to SharePoint 2010. Do we need to create new profiles for our reports? It's your choice. It's not necessary. It's really a matter of how you start tracking, what kind of implementation you put in place to track your SharePoint activity. If you implement our emergence tool, definitely you will want additional probably at least an additional profile with new reports that are specifically geared to being able to show you all the added value of a tool like Emergence and what it's able to tell you about your SharePoint environment. If you're using run-of-the-mill SharePoint logs, it probably might not be required if you're already tracking some activity.
Yeah, so this one did, yeah. So the next question is, migrating from 8.5 to 9.2, do we need to reanalyze all source data?
Not per se, in the sense that when we migrate the content, we migrate everything in the state in which we left it on 8.5a when we stopped using it. So when you arrive to 9.2, everything is as it was, but upgraded. The only time you might need to reanalyze data is if you want historical data in Insight. So once the Insight server has been installed, the data that you see in Insight is the new data going forward that's being analyzed. If you want historical data in Insight, you will need to reprocess probably a copy of a profile. We have a question here, does it work with Apache instead of IIS? I'm not sure what it means.
Presumably Webtrends 9.2.
I was going to say neither the SDC nor Webtrends actually work anymore with Apache. The older version of SDC was still available on Apache, although it does not. You never got with any version of SDC did you ever get the full functionalities available unless you were on IIS. But it's no longer the case. The new version of Webtrends as well as the new version of the SDC both require Windows 2008 64 bits.
Okay, well, it seems that there's no further questions at this time, so we'd like to thank everyone for attending our webinar, and I certainly hope you found it useful. As Peter said, there will be a recording and slides available on our website, www.unilytics.com. And if you have any further questions, or if you'd like an account manager to contact you, then please don't hesitate to contact us at info@unilytics.com or on our website. Thank you.